Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is October 23rd, 2025. You're listening, watching the Daily Ash Show live. On today's show, Andy and I are going to kick it off by talking about some news. I know Andy's ready to talk about quantum computing and lots of news there, as well as some other news stories. We're also going to talk about the most recent post, or at least it was last night, the most recent post from Ethan Mollick on LinkedIn, talking about how AI has been just a little confusing, especially when it comes to jobs, titles, but even just if everybody says the same word, does everybody even know what they're talking about anymore? So I thought that was a really interesting topic. And then we're going to do a quick demo of a tool called Napkin. Just recently found it and I really like it. So I want to just share it with everybody else. I logged in and used it for free. So we'll show that on the screen as well. And just kind of show you, why I think it's got some wind behind it. So with all that said, Andy, welcome. I'm Brian, by the way. And let's kick it off with some news stories. Tell me about quantum.
Yeah. So, recently we've been talking about how disruptive superintelligence might be. Well, meanwhile, in the background and expected to be delayed for many years, there's this emergent technology called quantum computing, which has the potential to amplify, and accelerate the development of all kinds of science, including AI. So I wanted to just mention a couple of things that came to my attention this week. First of all, there's a private company that's kind of a U.S. company. It's in Maryland, or College Park, Maryland. It's called IonQ, and it's one of the companies that you can actually buy on the public markets. And it is one of the leaders, but not at the scale, obviously, of a player in the world like Google that's working on quantum, or IBM that's working on quantum, for example. So, but nonetheless, that little firm released two scientific papers this past week where they had achieved 99.99% 2-qubit gate performance, meaning a very, very low error rate with just 2 qubits now, mind you. And expand, but the fact is, in quantum computing, when you expand the number of qubits, those computes actually reduce the error of the overall system. So if you demonstrate 99.99 on 2 qubits, that's a breakthrough. So that caused their stock price to jump by about 4%. And getting that 4 nines benchmark, it was surpassing the previous record in that kind of fidelity of performance by a quantum computing system. These systems are very inherently unstable, right? So they're operating at the subatomic level, the parts of an atom. So that getting them to stably and reliably perform has been a real focus of the research and development. Well, IonQ bought the company Oxford Ionics that had reached the previous record. So it's probably in combination with that team that they've reached this level.
Sure.
Okay, so that's the North Star for quantum computing, and crossing that bridge brings fault-tolerant computing systems closer to mass market adoption. And so you might, sooner than we expected, see systems, even a low number of qubits, performing reliably at the speed and extent and the magic of quantum, much, much sooner. But then, just this past week, Google created a quantum computer algorithm called Quantum Echoes. And it's running on their quantum system, which is called the Willow quantum chip. Now, when we say chip in this context, we're talking about a room with attendant facilities that's keeping this one little chip that's down at the bottom of it that holds the quantum particles. It's running that whole thing. Well, that new algorithm, Quantum Echoes, does something quite different from the way quantum algorithms have worked before. And it clocked in at 13,000 times faster than a classic frontier supercomputer. Okay, so running on that, now the Google Willow system is 105 qubits, much larger than the one I talked about with IonQ. So That 105 qubit Willow quantum chip using this new quantum echoes algorithm, it completed calculations in a couple hours that would require a frontier supercomputer approximately 3.2 years to complete.
That's
Now,
amazing.
all of that is amazing in terms of speed, but let me just tease you with what's happening underneath that makes this much more immediately applicable to scientific advancement. Here's a quote from Google. Just as telescopes and microscopes revealed previously unseen worlds, this experiment marks the first step toward a quantum scope capable of measuring natural phenomena that were once unobservable. So not only is it using this quantum scale tool to be a computer, it's also able to look into that space and see things outside of the computer itself, but at that scale. And this could revolutionize drug discovery by actually seeing how a potential medicines molecules bind to their targets, and advanced materials science through better characterization of polymers and battery components and other materials. So we're moving down to a way smaller than microscopic scale. And then there's one other benefit from the advances that Google's demonstrated this week. Excuse me. And that is about verification. So Tom O'Brien, a Google quantum AI research scientist, said, if I can't prove to you that the data I'm delivering from this thing is correct, how can I do anything with it? But this algorithm works like an advanced ecosystem, sending signals into the quantum system, disturbing one qubit, then reversing the process to detect quantum interference that classical computers cannot efficiently reproduce. So you can't use a classical computer to prove what's happening at the quantum level in this computation. But the butterfly effect, hence the echoes, right? Seeing something that happens down there and bringing it back out, this allows researchers to extract detailed information about the quantum system and prove that it's working in the correct fashion. So, wow, again, way beyond our normal discussion of what AI is, but this is going to change the way that and the AI marketplace thinks about what's happening there. And one of the things that came in one of the newsletters about this quantum echoes thing was every AI only startup just got reminded that compute is not just one species based on GPUs. It's an ecosystem, and quantum's coming.
Yeah, well, I think I will echo what Delma said here, which is head spinning. I mean, that's a lot. And of course, Justin had to come in with that's a quantum leap, like the TV show, which I like as well. That's a great comment. That's awesome, Andy. You kind of answered what I was going to ask you, which is like, well, where do you see this having an impact? But you kind of talked about, advanced polymers. You also talked about medicine and stuff like that. And it is funny to me how it seems like for decades we talked about supercomputers and what can supercomputers I have my laptop on my computer right now that I'm running literally the show off of in way too many tabs, and it's managing all of it, but a supercomputer. And then it I don't know, maybe since I've been paying more attention obviously to AI, I've heard more and more about quantum computers, but it almost feels like 2025 could be the year of quantum computing, just in the news that I feel like we've talked about on this show, with this being yet another one of it. I want to say Willow was talked about or announced in 2025. Now I might be wrong on that. Maybe it was 2024.
It was announced just at the end of 2024.
2024. Okay, so we're about a year. Yeah, so just from that announcement, and everybody kind of was blown away by what was announced with Willow and stuff like that, and then continuing this year with these high levels of, like you said, fidelity and stuff. I don't know. It's really, really amazing. Obviously, it's well beyond my abilities or anything like that, but it just gives you hope that there's people out there that are doing this and building these types of systems to solve these kind of problems like you're talking about. Okay, let's talk about something else super cool that came out in the news. I'm going to pull it up on my screen here that I thought was very interesting. And that is that Amazon came out with sort of like they just kind of dropped it on us. It wasn't like we knew this was coming. And if you're looking at my screen, you'll know what I'm talking about. They're showing sort of a first person view through glasses that Amazon delivery, that's how they did it. Amazon delivery folks would wear. It's got a heads up display. It's like ANSI green, which, I mean, who cares really? It's able to take quick pictures of like packages. They even show, I don't know if they'll show it on here. Well, there's a better vision of the glasses. So they're not super bulky or awkward looking really. I mean, I appreciate that they look like they have a tint on them, because my first answer anytime any of these AI glasses come out is like, well, that's fine in the house, but as soon as I walk outside, Andy, I'd be forget about it. If I don't wear sunglasses outside, I can't function. Like, it's just not going to happen. So anytime I see these like super glasses, I'm like, hey, as long as they work with sunglasses or they have transition lenses, that's the only way I'd be able to do the job. But in this particular case, you can see these glasses, and they do a couple things. You can, this is the one I was talking about. Like, you can see here, he's in the back of the truck and he's picking up boxes, your typical Amazon Prime boxes. And it's basically, as he looks at the first one, it throws like a red X on it. It's like, that's not the one that you're delivering on. And then it shows him like quickly scanning the codes on the box that's on the sticker and giving him the number with it. And there's some information on the right saying, hey, you have 3 packages delivered to 2142 Essex Avenue. You need number 38, 390, and U36. And so the glasses are helping him confirm that. Also, it says it'll help with things like, potential security dangers in the yard, a dog. Another reason why I couldn't do this job. I'm no good if a dog comes running at me. Other threats that might be issues, or just security things that that maybe is a heads up that the Amazon worker needs to know about. So I think this is very, very cool. I'm not sure how quickly this has been deployed out. Here's another view of it where the person's walking to the front door. And as I'll get pictures a lot of times of the it on my address. But I also still know that not just Amazon, FedEx and others, I still know that things get, given to another address. Not this home that I'm in right now, but a previous home, the exact same numbers for my address, the street number was the same for my street and one street over. So the street name was different, obviously, but the numbers were the same. And it used to, I wouldn't say it happened all the time, but it was not uncommon for me to have to walk one street over and go, this was supposed to be at your address. And then every once in a while, we would get one on our front stoop. And they'd say, hey, yeah, it's supposed to be Ringling, whatever it was, So this looks like the type of, AI deployment that we want to see, which is like real world use cases. Nothing against the Meta glasses and all that, but Amazon comes down and says like, hey, here's something that's going to make a difference. And it's not only going to make a difference for the workers, it's going to trickle down and make a difference towards, more reliable packages being delivered at my house. Obviously, Amazon wants to know about increased speed and reliability. They don't want things returned. They don't want things landing on the wrong porch, all the above. So something like this with an easy heads up display. And I love, Andy, that they just made it ANSI green and it's simple. Forget the images and the fancy. I just need to be able to see it. I just need to be able to see the information. And I love that that's the way they went with this.
Well, this is the advantage of building something that uses AI and advances the capabilities of their existing workforce, focused on a narrow application, which is selecting and delivering packages and taking a photo of it at the doorstep, which is what every Amazon delivery driver has to do. So they're making the job easier. And this is way in advance of having a humanoid robot do the job, right? So,
Sure.
It's helping their employee base, but it probably makes them more efficient. And that's going to reduce overall the total cost of the system of delivering retail packages to our doors. Now,
Yeah.
I wanted to just add, related to the discussion we had about Amazon being hell-bent on automating away every job that's in there for humans. I mean, not hell-bent. They're not going to do it in a couple of years, but that's their mission. And it's going to have an impact on human employees. But there's a quote from Elon Musk today. He might have said it a couple of days ago, but he said he thinks that AI will eventually eliminate all human jobs. Okay, this is Elon Musk saying that. And then, but he said, which will make work optional. Now, there's an assumption behind that last part of the phrase in my mind, which is that, oh, we're still going to be able to live, right? Because it's not, this will make humans optional, right?
Right.
It's going to say work for humans will be optional. So at least in the back of his mind, there's at least the possibility that there will be some kind of change to the economic infrastructure of our society that allows us to continue to live, productive and useful lives, but without being a worker.
And you look for something like that to happen. What I think is going to need to happen is our way as robotics become more and more part of our life. As I look out my window right here, which is there's a street in front of me and a whole shopping complex right across the street from me. 10 years from now, I look out and it would not be unusual for me to see a self-driving maybe taxi go by, maybe a little robot goes rolling down the sidewalk in front of me. And that all seems very weird, normal to me at that point, like it's a slow roll. But, Andy, I also think too, like for that future state, what we're also probably saying is that it's a long road. It's not like in the next 10 years thing. And look, just take a house design. I think what'll happen is as these robots become more involved in like the physical skills of electrical work or plumbing, because these things still happen, we will probably shape and shift how houses are built to maybe work within those confines of what robots can do. And so I just think there's probably a lot going to it. I mean, it's not that I disagree with him that maybe one day, I just think it's like a very far off one day. And there's a lot kind of like what we just talked about with Amazon that are all these incremental steps towards that. I do want to point out really quick before we jump. And by the way, Karl joined us too. So Karl, if you have a news story, I'll get to you in just a sec. But we talked about quantum and Amazon so far. So that's where we're at. But Justin said if Amazon made its employees wear those even for 1 year, it would have a data monopoly on smart glasses. Well, the data side is certainly not lost on me, Justin. I think you make a good point there, which is, yes, this could be very helpful for the driver. Also, it's a bit of a big brother sort of watching what you're doing. Now, I think Amazon already has tracking things and they have cameras and a lot of that is already in place. So I don't think anybody should be an Amazon driver if they don't feel like they're going to be watched all day, or that's not a possibility. That's probably all part of it. But yeah, sure, absolutely. Just like heads-up displays or vest displays for police officers have made a big impact in areas, right? Same thing here. And I didn't bring it up, but just so you know, they have
the drivers should probably take the glasses off before they use the pee bottle in the back of the van.
Yeah, right. Or at least a pause. Yeah, pause. They do wear a vest, by the way, because people are probably curious, like how these are they on device? There's a vest, like your typical Amazon vest, but these new ones I'm looking at on my screen have like 2 pockets here, and they hold rechargeable batteries. So you just swap out the batteries. And I don't know if the other side, one seems to be a battery, and there's also an emergency button on it, which I do remember them talking about, which also, hey, great. If somebody feels like they're in danger and they can hit kind of a panic button on their vest, I mean, I'm all for the safety of these drivers, which, look, we're getting into the holiday season. They probably don't get enough credit for how hard they work, what conditions they work in, the hours they put in, especially going into the holiday season. I think Amazon said they will be hiring 250,000. This is in response to the 600,000 we talked about yesterday. They said they're going to be hiring 250,000 temporary seasonal workers just this year. So like that's, look, they're not stopping hiring anybody. It's just like they have a future towards automation, but this is obviously a long plan like we talked about yesterday. But I think this is very cool. I'd be curious to hear as it gets rolled out into the wild and we start seeing people in our local neighborhoods do it, what the feedback is from the actual workers, whether it's beneficial, whether they feel like it's a little more big brother and it was just packaged as being helpful to them. I think there's a lot here to learn. Okay, let's move on because we really only we're 20 minutes and we've only really done 2 stories here, but I love your deep dive of quantum. So 100% worth it. Karl, do you have a news story from yesterday or so that you want to jump in with?
I do. So I saw that there was an update to Claude's desktop
app.
Yeah, just a little bit. And I think obviously it's more of to keep up with the launch of Atlas and, Comet's back in the news. And then eventually whenever Google has turns on all the agentic features of their app. But I was thinking about more so And I was talking to Jyunmi about this yesterday, how like with what Claude is doing, and just sort of an observation where they added the skills, you have a little bit more on the desktop browser, and then obviously Claude Code. And it does feel a little bit that like, I think Brian, you mentioned it too, with the use of MCP, you're giving, and added memory, you're giving all the pieces to get your Claude, all the pieces to actually accomplish a lot of work type items, right? So, and I don't know if any of you have the Claude browser plugin. I was on the wait list. I don't know. I haven't. Apparently some people have it. So it's it's very similar to how Atlas Comet does it, but it all lives inside Chrome rather than its own separate browser. So that'll be an interesting thing to try out once you have it. So it really feels that they're trying to position, which is a little sad because I don't know if you saw the similar web ranking, like how all the web ranks, and it's still pretty low on the list in general in terms of Claude itself, Perplexity. Yeah. So it's an interesting, but all their tools are really geared towards, I'm feeling a lot of actual work type use cases. Like, so even what we did yesterday in terms of subagents and swarms, and yes, there are lots of use cases in terms of development, but what you can do with that for work is, I don't know that many people who actually use Claude Code for non-coding tasks, but it's fantastic what you can do with it. Especially it's controlled on your local drive, plus you have the desktop, plus you have MCP as well. So it's just an observation with some of the announcements they have and how they're positioning themselves. They don't even have an image generator. They don't have a video tool. But if you think about it, how many of like businesses outside of marketing and maybe sales would actually on a regular basis use a video and image generation tool? It's very rare, right? So yeah, it's an interesting position. But the one thing, and the last piece is obviously they signed the deal with, they're looking, or the news is looking, signed deal with Google to get the tensor chips too. Yep. So that's the one big complaint I think with a lot of people with Claude's, like, your rate limiting is outrageous. Like even on the max plan, you will hit that rate limit, and then
that's my biggest complaint.
Right? And it's like that thing, you're like, you can't continue this conversation. Like, what do you mean you can't continue? Can you like summarize the conversation? Do I take it to another conversation? No. So, and you get it's just and then you have to pay the $200, and even that for some people is rate limited too. Claude Code, I haven't seen that, like it's a little bit more flex there, I feel, but like people just can't experience the full capabilities of it when you're always constantly limiting. So I'm hoping that is solved, but it's just an interesting observation to see, like, they're really trying to gear the thing for work, but unfortunately most people haven't heard of it, so everyone's just going to go to ChatGPT. And in a lot of use cases that I see, yes, for a good chunk of it, yes, you probably do ChatGPT and some of the features will eventually come over. But for a lot of, like, if your work is really wanting to get into advanced use cases, that's not coding, not software development, Claude's very, very excellent. But you have to get kind of in the ecosystem to really understand it.
Here's how I think that would work. Just really quickly, if scale goes down that road, and we haven't really deployed, we've done some stuff with Claude, but I would stop short of saying we've really deployed like you have with it. But here's what I would do, right? You have the new skills. We know that goes across things. I would work with a client to develop essentially the sales playbook, right? But attached with skills that could go across AEs, BDR, SDRs, and managers, your typical roles that you're going to find in a sales roles, right? And then I would create that. Then what I would do is I would have proof of concept that it works at that level, and then say, here are the rate limits, but here it is at 200. Okay, now let's look at this. You can see it works. It's working with your data. Where where is it not worth it at this point? If at $200 a month, that's the equivalent of paying an employee $2,400 a year, that you don't stand up 10 of these, right, across your division to help with all the things. And now they essentially have a live reactive playbook that can look not only into their CRMs and then, between Gong, Apollo, Clay, I can name 7 more. We can look at transcripts. We can do all that stuff. We can connect right now through MCP to that. I think this next layer is when you build out the skills, as the consultant comes in and helps them define and build their skill sets within Claude Skills, and those get into those markdown files and things like that, as I understand it. Then what I think you do is you package that together, you show the proof of concept, you're like, look, it's working, and then go, look, this is where we would scale this, which is much easier, by the way, to go to the sales manager and say, take this to your, budgetary approval. And they go, this is going to be 30,000 a year, but we can already show you what 30,000 a year is going to do for us. And that's way cheaper than even a brand new out of college behind the ear sales rep is not even going to be paid. Maybe 20, 30, but that'd be really cheap at this point. Average coming out of college is 42. So you're still under that, at that level. If you bought 10 $200 a month licenses with even the rate limits, you're at $24,000 a year. Right. So I think there's if anybody's going to build this business use case as a consultancy, you could focus 100% right now. I believe Karl, tell me if I'm wrong here. You could start up a consultancy, sales, marketing, you pick your flavor, using Claude completely. Like you are specialized in the Claude system, and you build the skills, the MCPs, you connect to their pieces. You fundamentally understand what they're trying to do. You show proof of concept and then scale with them, and then turn around and do it for the next client.
Yeah, you could. The difficulty of this whole piece here, and we've seen it over and over and over again, is its familiarity is the key thing, right? Because it's like a lot of IT folks or the people in the businesses, very few like, what the heck is Claude, right? That's one. That's one hurdle you have to get over. So what system you're using and then the question is, how good is it to ChatGPT? And that's a very nuanced answer right there, right? Even if I say it's better, right? Let's just say, it's better in all angles. You're still like, but I've never heard of it. Like, that's the thing. Like, I've never heard of this thing. And now you're also going to have to battle shadow AI too, because it's like, oh, what's this Claude thing? I'd rather use ChatGPT. Like, that's how embedded ChatGPT is into the mindset of a lot of people, especially like in our case, a lot of our clients. It's just embedded, right? They'll fight Microsoft Copilot, even if Microsoft Copilot, let's say, was a really good system and how it works. It'll still be, but I use ChatGPT and it gives whatever version of it's a better.
I get what I need,
right?
Yeah,
right. That's a hard. So in the end, you have to meet where they are, and where they are is ChatGPT, and it's unfortunate because the use of Claude in Excel, outstanding.
That's what I heard.
Outstanding. And just to me, even their presentation, just a little bit below Genspark, just a little, but with skills, you can put your brand standards, right? Like, to have your brand standards. A lot of marketing people will be like, that's amazing that I can use brand standards. But what's not amazing is, hey, so you can do this in Claude, and there's the thing called Claude Skills, and then they'll just look at you like, what the hell is that? What is a skill? Right. What is Claude? And what are you talking about? So like, crap.
You're right. I get what you're saying. You got to be able to demonstrate it and then work the change management. This is like, this is what we say too, like AI. If you're coming in for me to solve a problem for you, sometimes it's okay. I mean, if it's a custom GPT or an assistant, sometimes I can one off that and I'm done. But really what we're saying with a lot of clients is expect to be working with us for the next 12 months. Not because we need 12 months to deploy quick wins. That's not it at all. We'll deploy quick wins within 48 hours in some cases, depending on what it is and what we can solve. Sometimes we deploy results. I know you do too. We deploy results to clients in 48 hours that like save each rep 3 hours a week. And we did it in 2 days. But it's the change management. It's the constant grind. It's the what's coming next. Is it, wait, hold on, should we use the next model? Is GPT-5 going to mess me up with this router process? I mean, so like we try to communicate more and more now with our clients. Sure, we have objectionable, actionable things that we're trying to get done for you right now, but this is a long-term strategy, and you should be ready to either work with us or other consultancies or inside, whatever you're going to do, build inside teams for the long haul, because that's how you're going to get real results. And I think, just to get back to the Claude thing, that's what you would have to do. You would have to have a company, and you're right, so many are not ready for this, but you'd have to have a company that's like, you showed us the POC, we're bought in at a small scale, and now we don't need to define every bit and piece and every sub bullet. We just need to sign up for 12 months with you, because you're going to help us move this month to month to month across the process. And I'm not saying that's not a big lift for the company either. There's a lot of trust there, and you have to work with the right consultancies that are working in your best interest and are deeply embedded in your teams. And that is tough, but that's what I think it's going to take.
One thing, Brian, I really like your thought on this is what we're noticing too is whenever we deploy, once we go through discovery and all that, once we deploy a solution, whatever that solution, let's take, for example, the solution is a simple, hey, we work with, here's a prompt that you can use to do this activity. The only problem we're starting to see is that even though we've trained you, the action of the employee is copy paste. Oh, it doesn't work, I'm going to call the consultant. And I was like, now that's fine. But at the same time too, I don't think I did my job well enough in terms of training you that I have changed your mindset that you could ask why it got it wrong and kind of gone through the process. But instead you took the tool as a static piece and that's it. And then now it doesn't work. Now I'm going to ask you. And then it's hard for me to be like, oh, can you ask why it made a mistake? Oh, I didn't know I could do that. And it's like, I've heard a couple times like, but you use ChatGPT to do that. And we're literally doing the exact same thing here. And that's where I'm like, how do I bridge that connect? Where I'm like, hey, I'm trying to train you, and I said this, I wrote a post about this too. It's like, maybe and I'm 100% guilty of this, maybe training on the how, on the technical tools, like here's how to prompt for GPT-5, here's how complex, here's how to do this, here's how to build a custom, here's the technical aspects. But are we actually training people to think through and like a full problem solve with AI? Like, working with it rather than, oh crap, its answers are wrong, I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to ask it, but I'm just going to ask our consultant to do it. Again, happy to do it but I'm like, I'm hoping that I can train your thought process to work that way, but maybe the thought process isn't there yet.
So I'll just say this really quick, and I know we've sort of gone on to this. This really hasn't been so much as news. It's been like three mini topics, which is fine. I don't care. Like, I think that's the benefit of doing this show in this way, is that none of us feel like, oh, I got to move, I got to push. But I do want to answer that, because I don't have the answer for all teams, but I will tell you, Karl, I just this week kicked off my most recent, let's call it, certification course. And I have a track for both sales managers and I have a track for reps, right? AEs, BDRs, SDRs. They both kicked off on Tuesday. So this is week 1 of a 6-week course where they will walk away at the end. In order to get their certification, they're going to have to build an AI agent. We're going to use Make. I'm going to show them how to do that. We'll get there, right? But these are folks that some have prompting experience and some don't. I got managers who they need more experience. That's why we have 2 different tracks, because the managers need more use cases and more examples of showing how to lead than they do necessarily the nuts and bolts of maybe how to write a great email, right? So anyway, my point to saying this is, and it was nice that I got a little bit of like confirmation from Nate Jones, because he wrote about it almost the next day. But I was like, week 1, as compared to the past, where I would jump in and start talking about the basics of prompting. You know what I did almost for the whole hour in both classes is we looked at examples and I walked through all the pieces and parts of AI fluency. And what I was doing is just what you were describing, Karl, was like, it was less about here's a prompt that works. And it was more about here's how you would construct a prompt. Here's the things you should be looking for. I would put a prompt up and I'd say, where do you think this is going to go wrong before we ever ran it? And I would talk to them through that prompt and say, where is this making a leap of faith? Where are you asking too much of AI? But if you just read the prompt, it looks fine. But it's that critical thinking skills of looking through and saying that prompt isn't going to work. And then I showed them structure. And then I said, so their homework this week, and I have submissions coming in that I've been looking at, not grading, but just looking at what they did. It was simple. Write me a prompt in this structure. Then decide on one thing you want to change that you feel could have been better. Replace that one variable in the prompt, rerun it, and give me a short summary, you for everybody else in the chat in their class, and tell me why you made that change and did it actually make things better or worse. So just to your point, and I'm not patting myself on the back here, I'm saying you're exactly where my brain is with this. When I look at people who want to get to the next level in AI, in my case, I work with salespeople, but it would work anywhere, marketing or otherwise, finance, it wouldn't matter. When I said to them, I said, you're in this class because you want something bigger, farther down the road, agents, whatever it was. I'm going to show you how to do that, but we cannot get there if you do not fundamentally understand the critical thinking skills that go into how you write and evaluate prompts and how you deal with dissection, how you work with all these things like style and tone, and all the things the three of us have talked about for years now. But to your point, that's not what people know. They were given a tool that was very powerful by ChatGPT, and most of what they know of ChatGPT has been trial by fire. And so they've found some things through just iterations that have worked, but they've also probably learned a lot of bad skills along the way. And so I'm having to step back and go, hold on a second. It doesn't matter if you've written good prompts before. This is the start, and we build from here. And I'll show them how to do that over the next 6 weeks. So anyway, I'm with you. I don't know how to do that. I mean, unless I did trainings for every company we worked with, that's tough. And not everybody wants to learn it. And that's the harder part. Is these are people who signed up and paid good money to be in my certification program for agents. They've traded money and they know it's going to be valuable. They hope it's going to be valuable to them. That's not everybody. And we know that.
Okay. Yeah. You guys have talked for a long time. I want to talk just for a minute about Claude's new desktop. This is what started this part of the discussion, right, Karl? Claude has just released a new updated version of their desktop application. Let me say to you, without ever having used it, but I downloaded it this morning and I'm about to use it in a way that I haven't been able to use something before. And that is an omnipresent assistant in any application, in any window, in any tab. I can hit the option key twice and Claude brings up a little dialog box. And now I can have it look at that window. I can be in, for example, Lovable. And I can have then Claude watching what's happening in the Lovable window and giving me advice like over my shoulder. And I can also now, this new desktop app lets me give it access to, I don't have to do a connector or anything. It can, because it's running on my computer, I can let it look at my local files. And I can let, if I had a database running on my machine, I could say, go into this database and change the schema. And it's going to be able to do that. So it's a very different kind of thing I'm expecting now. And then it'll probably make me use the Claude desktop application. Why? Because I very rarely have gone over and clicked and opened the Claude desktop as if I'm going to use Claude now. But now if it's sitting there looking over my shoulder, and it can look on any window and act on it, I'm going to use it.
And that was the promise that I always thought ChatGPT, right? Because I was waiting for that feature in the ChatGPT app, but you never got the same as the mobile app where you could share your screen, unless they've done it, but I don't think they ever have. So
I have gone and tried to use some desktop apps. I mean, Claude had certainly had one a long time ago. And I used for a while OpenAI's. I've used Comet as its standalone app. I have always found my way back to it in a tab. So I will be interesting, Andy, to hear over the next week or two if you remember to come back and just say, hey, I'm still using desktop. But maybe what I would expect is you're going to say, I'm using desktop for these 3 or 4 things that I do. I'm obviously still in tabs over here because that makes sense to me. But I found that I will open up the desktop because I know I need it to look over my shoulder. So please make sure you keep, because I want to know. I have not found a desktop app to be sticky enough, but that's not to say this isn't the path there. That's just my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can use voice with it as well, right? So you can just talk to it. You can say, "Hey, I'm working in this area, and take a look at that. But let me talk to you about what I'm thinking, right?" And it's going to have a voice dialogue with you. I feel optimistic about this, but you're right. We'll see, because habitual patterns are hard to break, and I'm typically not a person who uses voice that much. Certainly not dialogue type voice. And I'm not that accustomed to doing anything other than having about, 50 tabs open on my screens.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's challenging to say the least with the tabs and working on so many different clients. I was just saying this to a client yesterday. I said, hold on, I got to go find that. He's like, well, is it in your ChatGPT? I said, it's not, is it in ChatGPT? It's what ChatGPT is it in? I'm in 7 different client ChatGPT Teams accounts. Where did I ask that question? And so now I need a super open AI. Maybe I need Claude Desktop that can look through quickly and be like, oh, Brian, you idiot. You did that in this client's, but you meant to do it in that client's ChatGPT interface. Man, have I caused myself a web of issues here with knots. It is very challenging. I'm in multiple N8Ns. I'm in multiple CRMs. I'm in multiple ChatGPT windows. And some days I think I just start my morning and I spend the first 20 minutes going, now, where was I? And that's a loaded question. I know we're 40 minutes. We're gonna cut any news, if we can call this. It was more of a discussion, which is great. I love this. We'll hit any of the news stories that we had tomorrow. And I think what we'll do here is we'll even jump past and bring up Ethan Malick's post tomorrow. We'll bring that up onto the show tomorrow. I think what I'll do now is just pivot really quick, spend the next 10 minutes looking at this tool, Napkin. Now, this is napkin.ai. Now, before the show started, Karl, I mentioned this to Andy, and Andy goes, oh, I've mentioned this on the show before. Have you ever used Napkin AI before I bring it up on the screen?
Yep.
You have. Okay. See, I'm just behind then. Okay. Yep. Well, I'm going to bring it up on my screen. And you guys can tell me your experiences too. Justin said, Brian, you need the Amazon smart glasses to track your tabs. Justin, you may be onto something. I would gladly wear a pair of glasses looking at my screen that gave me heads up notice and be like, nope, it was 4 tabs earlier, Brian, and you idiot, you closed it. Okay. So this is Napkin. Okay, so let's just do a new napkin here really quick before I go back and show you these. Maybe. Oh, let's blank napkin, because I just want to show it quite literally, if it gets there, is a blank document. I'm not sure what it's finishing here. Maybe I didn't save appropriately or something. There we go. Okay, it's literally lined paper. Oh, thank you. I didn't realize that I have it on screen. It's literally lined paper. It's literally meant, you would think it's supposed to look like a napkin, but it's just like a piece of paper on there. And I will say this, I was saying this to Andy before I started. Number one, I'm using this for free. I'm sure they have paid versions of it, but anything you're seeing me do is free. I've not traded any credit card information. What I love about this is sort of the simplicity. I think if you had zero AI skill, you could figure your way around this tool. And that is impressive in itself, because what you could do is just put in information in here. Now, I don't have, you know what? Let's just.
I have an example if you want.
I do have 2 examples, but I was going to put something new in here. But do you have here? I'll let you share. Do you have it ready to share on your screen? Because I'll have you do that in a second, Andy.
Okay, hang on.
Okay, yeah, you get that ready, and I'm just going to show my 2 examples, and we'll do it. So I'll just show this one really quick. This was a use case that I was talking about to a client, and all I did. This is a future AI use case that I was like, hey, I think there's value here. And so we have the problem, the solution, and then a quote from the client, because I want to put this in a deck, and I am putting this in a deck so I can present back to the client among many, many other ones. There's 30 of these, but this was one of them. And it was nightly Salesforce data enrichment. Here's the problem. And all you have to do is, you can even see here, this little guy right here, or if you wanted it to bring both of them into them, you could just highlight over it. And I think that's even super smart. You get this little guy here. And then from here, you can generate visuals, which is There was many to choose from. They were almost instantaneous. And I was able to do this. Not all of them were hoses. Some of them were icebergs. So there was a lot of them. And so I was able to quickly pick through. And when I found the hose one, then I was able to decide what kind of color scheme I wanted for it. And within really a minute, I felt like I had a visual that helped bring this to life. And then what I did was I just said, okay, here's the solution. Now, if I was building a deck, maybe I wouldn't do this. I was just playing around, but the solution, this is what we feel like the solution would be. And this is just a little bit more of a streamline. It's obviously knots in a hose. It looks more flowy. There's some information here that's pulled out of the text that I thought was good. And then the client had a quote. If I could just push a button and have everything in Salesforce be current, we'd sell more and report better. That's a direct quote from one of my clients, right? And I like that it just kind of put it up here. Now, this wasn't my response, but I thought this was just a fun way of showing a quote that's a little different than quote or italics or something like that, which is what I was expecting to do. It gave me a little bit more fun, interactive thing. The other thing I'll say really quick, and then Andy, I'll let you share your screen, is how quickly you could hover, not click and see, but actually hover and change different parts and pieces to it. So you're getting these previews. And I want to say up here, this one was even better. Yep, the rings. Look, I can change what would the different rings look like, colors, the thickness, I think, of the rings on there. I could also, I know on here, I could change the entire style. I can change the aspect ratio right away. I can reverse it so it goes the opposite direction. But what's genius about this is dumb easy to use. All I have to do is hover over it to see the preview of what that button or click would do. And I find that refreshing. So much of AI gets so tangled in the weeds. I kind of felt like this just did a great job. And Andy, I'll let you share yours. I felt like Napkin just did a great job of get in there and start building things. And if you wanted to put down some documents to export, man, did they make it easy. And again, I did that all on the free side. So I'm just really impressed.
Yeah. So a couple of questions for you. One is, or first a note, you saw when Brian was hovering over there that you can actually add your own image to that diagram, right? So you can add an image. So there's lots of other facilities, but the thing that bothered me was I couldn't see the obvious way to get the image and download it. I must have been missing that, but I'll show you what I did. This is weeks and weeks ago. I did this, which is I took this pretty long thing about reinforcement learning, and I wanted a diagram that would help kind of capture that just as a visual aid to someone who's going to actually read this article. And so it did this, and it chose, for whatever reasons, this idea of an iceberg and all the stuff that's underneath the iceberg, but it just didn't make sense to me. And then I struggled, and it gave me a bunch of different options, and I had selected one, but then I couldn't figure out how to go back to see the other options again because I didn't like this one. It didn't make sense when I finally selected it. So those things are problematic. Here I can add a comment to this thing, and then what it goes to my library, I suppose, this thing. But then where on this UI do I, if I wanted to put this into a PowerPoint presentation, for example, how would I do that?
Well, you can export the image, at least for me, in the upper right corner. There's an export to it. Like, yes.
Here?
I'm sorry?
Up under
settings? No. Go to the image itself, the iceberg, and then click on that. See in the upper right there, and then over
to the far invisible right. It is on my screen.
Yeah.
Like I need high contrast stuff.
It is awful gray. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the export. Okay. So finally I see how I can do it, and I can edit it apparently. But I don't really see how to do that. I can add a comment, but I guess I can add sketch. I could label something. I could spark, but I didn't get that cool color modification editing UI that you got. So anyway, I did this once, and then I said, I was blocked by the UI non-intuitive.
So we had the exact same opposite.
Enough for me, yeah.
That's funny.
I needed more.
That's funny. I love that. I love that though. That's like, and I think that's exactly right. I got in there and I thought, wow, this is this sort of makes sense where I think things should be, you know. And then you had the experience, you're like, I don't know, it's kind of clunky. It's making me work a little bit harder. And here I am, I'm like, look at this. You can just highlight over things and change. And so
Yeah.
I think that's
it's apparently user error on my part.
No, I think you're saying exactly what probably drives anybody who builds any products or, you know, digital services nuts, which is like, you know, how do you build the perfect tool or whatever? And it's like, you can't, because it made sense to me for whatever reason. It made sense to me. And for you, things weren't where you expected them to be. I think it's, you know, look, I kind of want to show my daughter this tool because, you know, she does put together reports and stuff. And I don't believe she would get in any trouble from the AI side for the company, because she's using AI in this case, not to rewrite a paper, but to enhance it with a well-placed image. This is her work. She had to work with somebody else in the class the other day, and she said, "Dad, look at this presentation that we had to put together." And she had to work with some other boy for it. And guys, it was like flying toaster ovens back in the day. I just looked at this report. I was like, this can't. And so but I couldn't tell if she had done it or not. I couldn't tell by the way she showed it to me on her screen whether, like, Karl, I'm sure you've been here with your kids. You're like, is she proud of this? Or is she upset with this? And I couldn't read her face, right? So I'm holding back because I don't want to be, you know, mean, but I'm just thinking like, no, like, you know. So anyway, it comes out that like that was this other student's work. And she's like, I guess this is what we're going for. And once she said that, I thought, oh, okay, her and I are on the same page. But I just thought, like, wow, you put some tools in the front of some kids sometimes, or even adults, and they will go ham on adding things and bells and whistles. Back in the day, like when you could first build websites, it was like, you know, it was flashing at you, it was playing. Remember when the websites used to build them, and it would automatically play sound through your speakers and make everybody mad and all that stuff. So anyway, Karl, anything to add on the not, I was about to say Notion, on Napkin? Have you used it extensively other than just play around?
Not even what you two are doing is a little bit like what I was just using it for is very basic. Hey, I need to put something in the report. I'm not sure what I put in. And then I would just grab a couple things that it would do just because it made a lot of sense on how it did. And it does it really well with how it imagines what I'm trying to output, and using just any visual tool like an AI image generator just doesn't work because it would come up with some weird, it just doesn't correlate. But this one's very, very focused on I really like it for presentations. If you're doing a presentation and if you're trying to come up with what would represent this, Napkin does a really good job of it.
Yeah, I could see this. I could see me putting one together for the class I was just talking about, and having this as like a walkaway document that summarizes what we went over in a week. And I could just take the transcript from my meeting, break that up into the biggest pieces, right? So I'm not going to give the whole transcript to Napkin. It'll be all over the place. But I can take ChatGPT. I can take that transcript, say, break this up into the 5 main topics I went over. Get that, go into Napkin, then add a visual that represents each of those 5 main topics, and then export it and then give it to them as basically a walk away, you know, piece. And I think that would be probably 30 minutes of my time, truly. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? It's not like it's not a lead magnet where I want to like really go over it. But if I just want to give something to them and be like, hey, this is basically what we went over. Yes, go back and watch the video. I always tell them I move fast, but this is being recorded. You can always go back and pause and see what I did on the screen. That's on you, right? I'm going to keep moving though. And this would be a great way to, I think, just have that companion piece to it. And it wouldn't be that hard to do, honestly.
This is infographic generation in support of some kind of narrative, right? And a couple of points. One is that Notebook LM now integrates infographic generation into some of their reports. So, and they're using Nano Banana, which is really, really good, right? So I would want to try the same kind of thing that you've done here. Maybe go into the Notebook LM interface and say, what can I get and how easy is it to extract that? I think that Napkin's been designed for exactly the purpose you're describing, which is I'm developing a report presentation and I want the image and I want to be able to extract that image singly and I want to be able to tune it and prepare it for my presentation. I think that's different from what Notebook LM is doing, but they're
For
both
sure.
in this class of providing infographic support to a text narrative.
The big difference I see, Andy, is that you kind of nailed it for me, is like if I use Nano Banana, it's going to create a singular image. But as you saw me demonstrate on there, I can independently change colors immediately. Right. So when it created this graphic, and if I imagine if we got and we use Napkin a lot, we'd be like, look, it does the iceberg a lot. It likes the hose a lot. I do think you would see some repetitiveness there. There's a certain style to Napkin, right? Which is totally fine. If it gets the point across and it's not a poor representation, that's great. But what I love is that the little knots or whatever, those are independent vector somethings. And so when it creates that image, for lack of better words, it's really not an image. It's a collection of
assembly of different elements on the page.
Yeah.
Which is a different approach. You're right. It's not a diffusion model generating a pixel image. Right?
Which is why there's probably, I imagine if you use this a lot, there would be a certain look or style that you go, oh, you built that with Napkin, because there's not an infinite amount of choices. Nano Banana technically can have an infinite amount of different variations. The difference is if that image isn't right, you're now stuck with trying to make changes to that image or that infographic that it created. So, you want something in the middle, but yeah, I agree. It's probably not for every use case.
I think it's ideal because you can just keep getting the fire hose up every time. You'll have a fireman story.
Yeah, right.
Every presentation you do.
Exactly. Knots in a fire hose. But if I ever had a knot like that, I'd be in deep, kinks though. That used to happen all the time with the fire hose. You learn really quick to deploy the fire hose and go up the 3 flights of stairs around the outside of the stairs, because you go around the inside where the railings are, or if they put the water in it, you can't move the hose up the stairs anymore. You learn that lesson real quick. So, all right, that's my quick firefighter story. All right, we're going to leave it there. We didn't get to our Ethan Malik. We didn't even get to a whole bunch of news stories, but that's okay because it's Thursday, not Friday, which means we're going to be back tomorrow. And I think the 3 of us are all going to be here, and we'll hit some more news stories. We'll talk about Ethan Malik's recent post because it's just more of a general conversation about definitions and terms in AI, especially when you're trying to hire for AI roles or you're trying to look for AI roles. There's just a lot of ambiguity in there and things that are tough to deal with. And so he kind of calls it out, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. But we'll wrap it up for now because we're pretty much there on time. And we will say have a great day, and we will see you guys again tomorrow for more fun, more AI fun. See you then, guys.